I'm proud of our national history. I'm proud we defeated the British. I'm proud of the Constitution. I'm proud of our Christian heritage. I'm proud that 600,000 Americans gave their lives to free the slaves. I'm also proud that we liberated Europe and the Pacific. I'm proud of the railroad, the plane, the computer, the landing on the moon. I'm proud of Washington, Lincoln, Roosevelt, Coolidge, Einhauser, JFK, Reagan, and Trump. I'm proud of our economic might. I'm proud of our unparalleled generosity and decency. I'm proud to be an American. I am not proud of Pride Month. Hey, good morning. This is the Morning Buzz, and we are day 6 into Pride Month. And I don't know about y'all, but I'm about sick of it. I'm very sick of it. We are going to have an update here on Pride Month. Turns out there was this left-wing activist in LA in this, Pride Month parade, and the left-wing activist winds up getting arrested. And he's screaming at the cop. He's like, this is homophobic. It's homophobic that you're arresting me. The guy had outstanding warrants, and he was being arrested on those outstanding warrants, and he claims that it was all homophobic, and that was the reason why he was being arrested at this Pride Month parade in Los Angeles. These people are so ridiculous. There's a lot of things to be proud of, and Gay Pride Month is definitely not one of them. All right, first, FDA. They pulled the emergency authorization of the J&J COVID shot after the final batch expired last month. Let me say that again. They pulled it, the final batch, the emergency authorization that the FDA gives out. They pulled it after the final batch expired last month. So here we have, they expired May 7th. And they finally pull it a month later. And then you're going to, I didn't even know this. J&J, I mean, we're going to get into this. J&J, that vaccine is so dangerous, it's not even funny. The FDA slapped a warning label on it. And you mean to tell me you had this and you were giving it out to people and you slapped a warning on there and you knew how dangerous it was for people to take? You're just now pulling the emergency authorization for these J&J COVID-19 shots. Just now. The FDA has determined that it's appropriate to protect the public health or safety to revoke this authorization. It's a little too late, don't you think? All right, next, I do want to give credit where it's due. Nikki Haley, she finally answered the abortion question the way conservatives have been waiting for. I don't know why Republicans don't answer the abortion question like this every single time. You have to find where they lie on an issue. 9 times out of 10, if you are in an argument with a lib, you are going to realize that they are extreme. So when it comes to abortion, they believe in abortion, I think, after birth. There really is, and again, this is the party of assisted suicide, so that's not a stretch, folks. I think that they truly believe in the 14th trimester that you can get an abortion. Yes, I do believe this. So Nikki Haley, she finally answers this question the way that conservatives have been waiting for, and also, I found this clip, it's going viral, it's pretty funny. A liberal woman going on TikTok, of course, because all of life's greatest advice is on TikTok and via the internet. But she's throwing liberal men under the bus, okay? Because she can't find one to date who acts like a man. Well, I could have told you that, sweetheart. This liberal woman, she just goes on a rant about liberal men and how they're not manly. And it's like, yeah. So the FDA... they're pulling this emergency authorization of Johnson & Johnson. We're going to get into all of this here on the Morning Buzz with me, Cat Petersen. As always, folks, I am live in the studio on Facebook and on YouTube. You can catch me there, and you can also throw into the comments and interact with me. Like the video, and you can also text me at 309-451-9299. All right, let's get into it. The FDA pulling this emergency authorization for J&J. The J&J COVID shot, the one that was really causing people problems. So Bloomberg came out with this yesterday. It's called Janssen Pharmaceuticals. I guess it's like a unit within Big Pharma. So there's Big Pharma, and then there's a unit within Big Pharma, and it's called Janssen Unit. So it's a company owned by Johnson & Johnson, and they told the FDA that previously acquired jabs have reached their expiration date and that the U.S. Demand for the product is no more. So the demand for the J&J shot has gone down, and actually all the jabs are expired up to this point. This is why Janssen approached the FDA, Janssen Unit representing Johnson & Johnson, the company. They were the ones to make the call. They said, hey, can we revoke the emergency authorization of these? We don't see a demand, and the jabs are expiring. So the FDA determined that it was appropriate to protect the public health and safety to revoke this authorization. This is what a statement reads, and then they say, does not intend to update the strand composition of this vaccine to address emerging variants. So they're not going to update this vaccine like Moderna, like Pfizer. They're just pulling it off the shelves. They don't have the emergency use authorization for it anymore. This news comes 2 years. This is too late. This is way too late. The CDC, the FDA, get this in 2021. You remember, they wanted the J&J shot to be stopped. They halted it. Why? Because there were rare and severe types of blood clotting happening in individuals receiving the J&J vaccine. So that was going on in 2021. You would think that they would pull the emergency authorization for the J&J shot after hearing about these numerous instances where people were, getting blood clots. And did you know this? After all of that went down in 2021, what they decided to do was slap a warning label on the jabs. So there's a condition that you could possibly get. Your likelihood goes through the roof if you get the J&J shot. You have a higher chance of being afflicted with, it's called Guillain-Barré syndrome. I didn't even know what this was until this morning, and I looked it up for y'all. Particularly within the first 42 days of being vaxxed or being jabbed with the J&J, symptoms stemming from illness, from the illness can include weakness, problems moving one's mouth, bowel and bladder control issues, the inability to move one's eyes, paralysis, or even death. And who has that study out? Yale Medicine. Yale. They've got the study out. The CDC, they confirmed the authorization removal on its website. And now the adults who have received the now discontinued jab. So if you've gotten the J&J jab, I'm sorry, they want you to start mixing and matching with the other ones, so Moderna and Pfizer. So they say, hey, you might want to try a cocktail of Pfizer and Moderna from here on out. Okay. You're a lab rat. That's what this is. They're playing around with your life. Any and all remaining doses of J&J COVID shots expired on May 7th, according to the CDC. Wow. Okay. And then the authorization, I'm bringing you the news today, was just pulled as of, I think, yesterday. They pulled it a month later after they expired. So wait a second. The batch went bad. Are you giving bad batches to people? Are you giving expired vaccines to people? So Janssen Unit, the company within the J&J, it's the big pharma They reportedly did not ask for the withdrawal until May 22nd. That's 2 weeks after the CDC claimed expiration date of May 7th. Isn't this wild? For me, it's a little too late. I mean, we've got people with that disease where they can't even move their mouth, where they have no control over their bowel or bladder. They can't move their eyes, and perhaps even they die. You'd think that maybe we would pull it then. You'd think that we wouldn't slap a warning label on it. Okay? You think we would have pulled the emergency authorization. It's too late. It's too late. And then, get this, they waited until the vaccines expired. That's what did it for them, folks. They said, maybe we could pull the emergency authorization of these. Maybe we should tell people not to take these anymore because they're getting old. Like, that's the only reason why, though, because for sure it's not because they're getting Guillain-Barré syndrome, or for sure it's not because people are getting blood clots, which is what we found out in 2021 from the J&J, and they halted it for just temporarily, but they didn't remove the emergency authorization of it. It's sad. It's so sad. I look back on this and I'm just like, wow, we were a bunch of lab rats. All right, I do want to shift gears here. I want to talk about Nikki Haley in 2017. When she was Donald Trump's ambassador to the UN, there was so much hype around her. People really liked Nikki Haley. But then guess what Nikki Haley did? Of course, she threw Donald Trump under the bus after January 6th because she thought it was cool and she thought it's what people were doing. Then she realized that wasn't what people were doing, and then she tried to flip back and try to be pro-Trump. And now she's just an example of the old GOP guard that we don't use anymore. Sorry, you're washed up, Nikki. However, conservatives have been waiting for someone to answer the abortion question just like Nikki Haley did just now. She was asked to pinpoint what week her abortion restrictions would begin by Jake Tapper here. And I'm going to share this with you. You can check it out on the Facebook Live. I'm here in studio. Be sure, if you're watching right now, to like the video and to share it out with your friends. So here we go. Let's listen to Nikki Haley being asked this question by CNN Jake Tapper. There you go. Boom. Nikki Haley. She is on fire, folks. I've been waiting for someone to answer that question like that for a very long time. Now, the question is, do they really, though? Does Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, do they really think that 37, 40 weeks, is that where they're at? Where is their line? Neither Biden nor Harris has said that, because Biden nor Harris, or any Democrat for that matter, has been asked that to get that specific, which is why don't Republicans do that? Even here locally, right? Sharon Chung is probably very extreme on abortion. She was knocking on people's doors and saying the Republicans want to go after your right to choose and they want to infringe on your freedoms. Okay, Sharon, where are you at on this issue? Why didn't Scott Preston press her on this? So Republicans are deemed extreme for saying maybe somewhere between 6 and 12 weeks. A lot of Republicans take that position, 6 to 12 weeks. Me, if I was running, I'd be like, yeah, no, we're going to federally ban abortion because laws are rooted in morality. And if you don't believe me, look at everywhere, right? Murder, we don't allow murder. We don't allow lying under oath. We don't allow theft, stealing. It's all based off of, our laws are based off of morality. And it just makes sense to have a federal ban on abortion. So if I was a politician, I'd say, ban it today. And you won't be allowed to have an abortion at all. That'd be me. But a lot of Republicans are out there saying 6 to 12 weeks is enough time to decide if you're going to abort a life and to kill something, kill a baby. So, What is a specific Democrat position on the other end? What is that? You have to get people to define their extremity or their extremities. Are they are they for 37 weeks, 40 weeks, just before the birthing person starts crowning? Do they support abortion in the 14th trimester? Can I kill my 7-year-old and claim that it's an abortion? Remember, Democrats are also the party of government assisted suicide. So if you think that's too far of a stretch where they would be pro killing a 7-year-old if you decided you didn't want the kid anymore, you probably think there would be never a time. There's never a time where Democrats said, you can have babies. Like, there is no limit. That's the thing. Democrats believe that. Nikki Haley is spot on about Democrats needing to be held to specifics when it comes to their pro-abortion agenda. Hopefully Donald Trump remembers to put that in the spotlight when he's debating Joe Biden. I imagine he's going to be the nominee for the Democrats. 309-451-9299. I'll be back on the other side. We've got a packed show for you. Mike Coolidge will be joining me here at about 6:30. Also, David Shestokas will be joining me at about 7. David Shestokas, I'm very excited. He's going to talk about Amendment 1. So you remember when you were asked about Amendment 1, I think that was in 2022. Turns out that the question on the ballot wasn't the actual amendment. And David Shestokas is fighting that. He's a Constitution expert. So we'll be back. This is The Morning Buzz. Hey, good morning. Thanks so much for joining me here. I so do appreciate it. It's all about the money for the pharmaceutical companies. I got the first two. Wish I wouldn't have. Such a joke. Thanks so much for texting in, Kimberly. Yeah. I'm just shocked that it took J&J this long to remove that emergency authorization. I told you that they actually put that on hold because people were getting blood clots. So you would think that they would remove it entirely from the market. But they didn't. They brought it back. They put it on hold. They brought it back, the J&J, back in April, I think, or April 2021 is when we started to see people get paralysis, started to die. We saw numerous people lose the mobility of their mouth after taking the J&J, some paralysis, losing control of their bowel and bladders. That's what we started to see happen in April of 2021. And what did they do? They slapped a warning label on it. Okay, like, why didn't you just, I mean, you had two other ones on the market. And I like this comment because it's like you had your money. You had Pfizer, you had Moderna. Why in the world would you need J&J if it's having these effects on people? It's about the money. And they already created the vaccines. What are they going to do with them? They're not going to throw them away. They're going to put them in your arm and charge you for them, charge your insurance. So where are Democrats supposedly creating fake elections? Yes, that's the title of this show today because I'm having David Shestokas on. He ran for attorney general. He's a Constitution expert. He's also an attorney. Or are you trying to establish a precursor so that way in the 2024 presidential election comes, you conservatives can claim election fraud when your candidate loses? Colson, I watched 2,000 Mules. Watch 2,000 Mules, and then you'll understand what went on in the 2020 election. This past election in 2022, that's what I'm talking about, because David Shestokas is going to be holding their feet to the fire when it comes to Amendment 1. Amendment 1, for those of you who don't know, gives collective bargaining power to government unions, the power in the world, and none of the power in the hands of the legislatures, the people you and I elect to represent us. So the problem with that Amendment 1, just one of the many, right, is this idea of a government union. So let's just say, for example, firefighters, right? Say they are a government union and they're firefighters, and your house starts burning down. Well, nobody comes out to your house because guess what happened? The firefighters, the union, they decided to bargain, and right now, or previously, before Amendment 1 was passed, you couldn't strike. Public unions weren't allowed to strike. That's one thing that they couldn't do because obviously they provide a public service, i.e., the firefighters come to your house and uh, spray it down and keep you from burning alive in it. Cops, they can't do that, right? But now they can under Amendment 1. That's the danger. And that's just one thing. That's all money aside. That's just one little part of Amendment 1, where government unions can just get whatever they want whenever they want, and the legislators can't do anything about it. They're running the state of Illinois. So Amendment 1 was terrible. Yeah, you should have voted no on that. Now, you might have voted no or yes, depending on what county you lived in, because there was all kinds of different questions countywide. And the question did not match what was actually being amended. So they amended the Constitution of Illinois with this Amendment 1. But they asked you the question on the ballot, and the ballot question did not match the actual amendment, which is a big no-no, and that's fake. It's a fake election. When they put a phony question out there and then they change it to not reflect the question, then that's a fake election. And the Democrats were behind Amendment 1. So Colson, when I say fake elections, it happens. Where Democrats will put something on a ballot. A lot of times it's at a municipal level. This is the first time, I think, statewide we're seeing this, where we had a question that wasn't even actually what they were changing. They just said they were asking us, and then they put in the Constitution, whatever they wanted, the Illinois Constitution, and they didn't even bother checking with us. And they claimed they checked with us because they said that they asked us the question, but the question was not what was going into the Illinois Constitution. So to unpack it, we're going to have David Shestokas on at 7 o'clock. Colson, I hope you can join us. What else have I got today? Let's talk about this liberal woman before I get to Mike Coolidge. So she says that she's sick and tired of dating liberal men because they don't act manly. Yeah, well, I could have told you that, sweetheart. So tired of liberal men who want to get in your pants by literally trying to get into your pants, and they want to see how it fits. That's what's going on here. Men don't want to sleep with you anymore. They just want to try on your pants. Go into your closet, try on all your dresses. Yeah, that's where we're at now, folks. So I've watched the documentary What is a Woman multiple times. Uh, and I really hope Matt Walsh launches a sequel, and the documentary is called What is a Man? Because this liberal woman is struggling. She's gone viral on TikTok because, like any good liberal, she goes to the internet to have her questions answered. 309-451-9299. You can text me, be a part of the show. You can see me live in studio. I'm right here. I'm interacting with you. We've got a comment here. Where are Democrats supposedly creating fake elections? Or are you trying to establish a precursor so when the 2024 presidential election comes, you conservatives can claim election fraud when your candidate loses? So you're talking about the fake elections that I'm going to get to in the 7 o'clock hour here with David Shestokas, who ran for Attorney General. And David Shestokas, he is leading the front here on going after the leftists who cooked up this fake question and put it on your ballot. It's a fake question. It's not even real. So what they put on your ballot isn't a reflection of what actually went into the Illinois Constitution Amendment one. So we're going to be talking with David Shestokas a little bit about that in the 7 o'clock hour. Before we get to all of that, I did want to talk about this liberal woman going viral. Real quick, let me play this for you. I don't know. I wish that this poor girl wouldn't have gone to the internet, and she needs to honestly go to the Bible, right? She says that she's tired of liberal men who try to get into her pants by literally trying to get into her pants to see how they fit. So we're at a point now where men in the world will raid your closet, start trying on your dresses. And ladies, I think we can all agree that's just not attractive in any way. So she's upset and she went viral. She wants to know if it's possible to find a man who A, acts like a man, B, treats her like a woman, and C, is not conservative. I'm sorry that probably you're not going to get that trifecta because, yeah, you have to be willing to compromise a little bit. And if he votes for Donald Trump, what's the big deal? So here's this liberal woman. She's gone viral. Here we go. Oh man, I'm sorry. Your ears are probably bleeding. Yeah, like give her credit. She's tired of dating soy boys, and I get it. Reaching out to the one person who might be able to help the internet. Is paying for the first date not something men are like expected to do or stopped doing? I don't know. I saw this extra gum commercial, and it absolutely drives me insane. It's this little twerp, and he has like this existential crisis when he's asked by the waiter together or separate because he doesn't know if he should pay for the date or not. Every time I watch this commercial, I want to just reach through the TV, grab his head, shove it into a toilet, and give him a little swirly. I mean, what's wrong with you? Yes, having a man who is a gentleman and chivalrous is something you desire. You're gonna have to deal with him being conservative because liberal men are dweebs, right? If you want someone to open the door for you, you might need to be okay with your date voting for Donald Trump. Okay. And obviously, as a conservative woman, right, I don't understand where you say that you want your independence and you want to be respected for your independence and have your own autonomy in the relationship, and how, conservative women can't have that, but that's not true, right? Where is she getting her concept of conservative men and women? Is she getting it from CNN? Is she getting it from TikTok? Because 98% of what she's heard about conservative men and women is from TikTok and leftist tabloids like CNN, which is all complete hot garbage. Being a conservative woman, I could say that, you can have independence and your own autonomy in the relationship and have a traditional female homemaker childbearing role, and also not compromise any kind of morals or values that you have. I don't know. This woman's nuts. And speaking as a conservative woman, read your Bible, honey. Just go read your Bible and don't go to the internet. Now, joining me here on the Morning Buzz, I'm so excited, Mike Coolidge. We are doing things a little bit earlier today. Mike Coolidge is a former congressional candidate, Army officer, and host of a syndicated radio show, Michael Coolidge Show, which is throughout Illinois on dozens of stations. And he's also a PAC spokesman, and he currently is the Ogle County Republicans chairman, and he's the owner of TMKS LLC, which is actually a consulting firm, a communications consulting firm. He's been a lifelong conservative. I'm so glad that he's joining me. Mike, how you doing?
Good morning. A little bit earlier than normal this morning. And by the way, I love David Shestokas, so I know who's coming on later.
Yes. He's here to
Great
talk
speaker.
about Amendment 1, which
Yes.
is, I mean, have you seen some of this, Mike?
Yeah, it's crazy, but not as crazy as this HB 3751 that Democrats passed, and some Republicans in Springfield didn't even vote for it. They co-sponsored it, and it's this illegal immigrants, illegal aliens, essentially non-citizens in Illinois, being able to become law enforcement officers in the state of Illinois. So you might have non-citizens arresting citizens in Illinois if this law actually, gets through and is signed and is deemed constitutional. It's absolute insanity.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I was on one yesterday, Mike. People contacted me after the show and they were like, "You okay?" And I'm like, "Yes, I'm fine. I'm just livid." About it's Republicans sponsoring these bills, voting for Democrat-sponsored legislation in itself doesn't really make sense to me at this point because the Democrats have a supermajority. So I don't even know why you would be co-sponsoring something. It's one thing to vote for sponsored Democrat legislation. It's another thing to throw yourself on as a co-sponsor for a lot of these bills. And we had Republicans doing it, one being my state representative, which I was very disappointed to hear about because I think he's, pro-law enforcement. He's also when he was running, he was very much against the SAFE-T Act, which I think is the problem. I'd imagine Republicans are going to try to say, oh, well, the reason why we need non-citizens arresting U.S. citizens is because we have a police shortage. Well, why do we have a police shortage? It's probably because people talk about defunding the police all the time and they treat cops like garbage, and then the cops cuff the criminals. You put them in there and then they get out the next day. That's what's going on. And we don't need non-citizens. We need to treat our cops with respect.
Yes. And that's the explanation I've heard as well. And some of the Republicans who voted for this are pro-police, and I don't doubt their pro-police stance at all. And they talk to their police brethren, and they say, yeah, our rolls are really low right now. We need to hire more people. What can we do? Well, there's a bunch of DACA recipients or DACA people who live in Illinois, these people who, if you remember, 10 years ago, 2012, Obama decided, it wasn't even through executive order, it was through a memo, completely bypassing the whole way that I grew up, and we all grew up, learning how bills are passed in the United States. It gets to the House, gets to the Senate, signed by the president. If the Supreme Court deems it's constitutional, it stands. Or you can just write a memo. Saturday Night Live even made fun of this 10 years ago against Obama, saying this isn't how laws are passed. But, it was deemed unconstitutional by some judges, and then some judges overruled that. It's still a complete, gray area right now, this whole idea that if you were brought into the United States as a child illegally, yes, that's no fault of yours. You didn't decide to do that, but you're here illegally. And can you stay, or do you have to, be deported like any other illegal alien in the United States is? Well, it's been so long. It's been over a decade now. Heck, we're going on a decade and a half, Cat, where DACA recipients are here, and a lot of them are looking for work, looking for jobs. They're still illegal. They still, again, through no fault of their own. People understand that, but you're still not a legal citizen of the United States like you or I am. Mm-hmm. And they're looking for work, and some of them want to be police officers. And this law in Springfield, HB 3751, is saying, they'll be eligible. So the situation, again, that brings us to in 2023 or maybe 2024, if this is when a law like this would actually be implemented, is you're going to have somebody who is not a citizen in the United States arresting a citizen of the United States. And I don't know about you, but something's a little backwards about that.
Yeah, well, and I'm now. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think when I was reading through the bill, it says that they will have firearms, so they will have to go through the background checks, everything that a cop has to go through. They will have to go through in order to carry a firearm. So
Yes, and
now,
that's kind of the poison pill on this in a good way, because an illegal alien to the United States is not permitted to carry a firearm. This as Chapin Rose on the floor of or Senator Chapin Rose on the floor yesterday said, is that this is not going to pass legal muster. And even the law itself says, well, until the federal government changes it so that a DACA recipient could hold a firearm, this won't come into effect. And again, it's like that's where we're at in 2023. They're writing laws and sprinkles. It shows the priorities they have, where they're passing laws, but only if the federal government changes laws in the future, and then this would become law. It's just insanity. But yeah, so that's the good news, is that the federal law prohibits an illegal alien from holding a firearm. You have to be a citizen of the United States. But, Democrats somehow get control of the House and the Senate in 2024, and Biden somehow wins re-election. Yeah, this could be the situation in Illinois.
speaking of Biden, let's talk about the FBI probe and Joe Biden. Nobody's really talking about it, but I think that he could see some sort of indictment if this. I'm looking at the FBI. What is it? The form. I think it's 1023, where
Yes.
it goes out into detail about this bribery scheme. And I don't know where we're at on that, Mike. Where that document is at. A whistleblower said that it talks about how there was a bribery scheme where Joe Biden got money in exchange for policy, favorable policy to foreign adversaries or for foreigners, right? And I don't know where that's at. I know that the FBI was trying to withhold it. They were trying to not show it to all of Congress. They were going to show it to Chuck Grassley and who is it, Comer?
Yes. So you have the Congressman James Comer, who's leading the House investigation into this, subpoenas the FBI head, Christopher Wray, saying, we need this document. It's not even unclassified. Give us the document. No redactions, none of that. So Wray stonewalls. He says no, and then says, fine, we're going to bring you up on contempt of Congress. All right, fine, let's talk about it. Here's the document. It's redacted all over the place. And it's ostensibly, this is what they always do, because they're protecting their own, and they did this during James Comey, not to be confused with James Comer. James Comer is a good guy. He's a Republican who's getting at the bottom of this. James Comey, of course, the former FBI head before Christopher Wray, under Obama and the very beginning of Trump's term. And, remember the conundrum they were in. They saw possibly illegal activities by Hillary Clinton in 2016 in the summer with the whole, computer situation and the emails and classified information on her server, blah, blah, blah. Well, we really don't want to pursue this woman who might be our boss in 6 months. So we're going to just, move some things around here. Well, Christopher Wray has a situation where, and there's so many deep staters in the FBI, his boss, Joe Biden, there's hard evidence that he is implicated in a bribery scheme, which we've all known about for a long time. And now we have hard evidence from an FBI whistleblower who, James Comer, Republican Congressman James Comer, has pointed out this is an extremely reliable whistleblower who's been used numerous times to move the ball forward on a lot of these investigations. And so this isn't some rando that just came up out of nowhere. So this is a really hard lead on this. We have the hard evidence of it, but FBI Director Wray is hiding behind, it's going to show practices of the FBI that we don't want people to know. Too bad. This is an alleged high crime and misdemeanor by the President of the United States, and there is a system we have in place to adjudicate that, and it's called impeachment. And that, I think, is what FBI Director Wray is the most fearful about. And I wouldn't be shocked if by this time next week, maybe, not next month or next year, next week, we might have that word being bandied about, impeachment.
Yes, yes. We've got to take a break, Mike Coolidge, but thank you so much for joining me here on the Morning Buzz. I so do appreciate it. We are going to wind up talking about Anna Paulina. Luna, she's alleging now, Mike, the FBI is afraid their own informant will be killed if unmasked in this whole probe. So I'm going to get to that.
I've interviewed her. She's awesome. Yes. Thanks so much, Kat, for having me on, as always.
You have a great rest of your day. Folks, as always, go to Coolidge, Mike Coolidge. It's KOOLIDGE on Twitter. I'm always up to date on his tweets, man. I mean, he's tweeting everything in and around Illinois, nationally. Go check out his Twitter, follow him. I'm going to be back. We're going to talk about this representative from Florida. She's a Florida representative, and she's talking about, and she's alleging that the FBI is afraid their informant will be killed if unmasked. So this is like movie type stuff when it comes to this probe into the Biden bribery scheme. So we'll be back next. Okay, so, I mean, this just in, like, yesterday sometime, according to the FBI, Biden, as VP, was involved in a $5 million bribery scheme with a foreign national. She wrote in this tweet, now her name is Representative Anna Paulina Luna, and she's alleging that the FBI is afraid their informant is going to be killed if unmasked. So, I've previously reported that the FBI informant provided information about then Vice President Joe Biden being involved in criminal bribery scheme, right? So we see this. It's the FD 1023 form, and it's supposed to highlight those allegations. And how did we come to find out about the form? It was this whistleblower, a very credible whistleblower. And the House Oversight Chair, James Comer, a Republican from Kentucky, a good guy, said yesterday, after a meeting with the FBI, quote, FBI officials confirmed that the unclassified FBI-generated record has not been disproven and is currently being used in an ongoing investigation. The confidential human source who provided the information about the then president, Vice President Joe Biden, being involved in a criminal bribery scheme is trusted, highly credible informant who has been used by the FBI for over 10 years and has been paid over six figures. So Comer is not happy with Wray's refusal to cooperate with this committee. Like I said, like Mike Coolidge said in the previous segment, a very heavily redacted piece that they got, but we could see an indictment or even impeachment, right, of impeachment, indictment of Joe Biden. I know, and that's wild. So Christopher Wray needs to do his job and answer to Congress, or else he will be held in contempt. And what we are seeing with Joe Biden's bribery schemes is clearly grounds for impeachment. It's time to impeach Joe Biden. Former President Donald Trump was hounded by the Department of Justice and Democrats in Congress for years based on thin evidence, with almost all of it turned out to be falsehoods. The Durham report proves that. He did not collude with Russia to win the 2016 election. That was he was dealing with that Russian hoax his entire presidency. Now, here there appears to be a highly credible information that the DOJ and the FBI are trying to keep concealed as they try to protect Joe Biden. So they're trying to protect him here. Now, if Luna is correct, the FBI claims it fears for the safety of the informant. It sounds like another attempt at an excuse by Wray as to why they won't produce the information that Comer demands. So we have the informant, the very credible whistleblower with this form. It's the FD 1023 form that shows exactly how Joe Biden was taking part in this bribery scheme. They won't produce the form. They've lied about the form for months. Finally, they admitted that the form exists. They produced the form. It's heavily redacted, and they won't cooperate with the House Oversight Committee. James Comer wants cooperation, and now the FBI is out there trying to claim that they fear for the safety of this informant. We don't know the informant's name. He's a whistleblower. Now, to me, this does sound like another excuse cooked up by Ray because they do not want that information getting out there because they are so desperately trying to protect Joe Biden. It also begs another question. Who are they afraid would assassinate the informant, and why are they not chasing down those threats? And shouldn't the Justice Department of the most powerful nation on earth be able to protect witnesses? So we're going to come back. I'm going to explain it a little bit more for us on the air. Hey, good morning. Thanks so much for tuning in. I so do appreciate it. In the 7 o'clock hour, we will be joined by the David Shestokas. I've got so much to get to here, folks, in such little time. Okay, so before I took the break, I was talking about Anna Paulina Luna, and she's saying that the FBI is afraid that their informant is going to be killed if unmasked. So who's the informant? It's this whistleblower who originally came out and said that this form exists. It's the FD 1023 form, and this lays out an alleged bribery scheme that Joe Biden took part in. It's a $5 million bribery scheme where he took money in favor as a then vice president to create policy that was favorable to foreign adversaries. This is big deal. This is huge deal because that's treason. Right. I know your head is exploding. Calm down, relax. Well, let's go through all of this. So Anna Paulina Luna, she's calling kind of for impeachment. She just said that she left the House oversight because she tweeted this out. The FBI is afraid their informant will be killed if unmasked. Look, this is just another excuse. They lied about the form. They said that the form didn't exist. Then they said, okay, the form exists. And then they produced the form, but it's heavily redacted. And now they're saying that the informant, the reason why they won't come forward and talk about all of this or produce the form without the redactions is because they're afraid the informant will be killed. Now, if Luna is correct here that the FBI claims it fears for the safety of the informant, it sounds like another attempt at an excuse by Ray to not be cooperative and not produce the information that James Comer, the Republican Kentucky guy, demands. He's demanding this information. Christopher Ray won't give it to him. This also begs another question and a much bigger question, okay? This is the big question. Who are they afraid will assassinate the informant? And why are they not chasing down those threats? And who shouldn't, and I'm just saying, shouldn't the Justice Department be of the most powerful nation, the United States, our Justice Department? Shouldn't we be able to protect our witnesses, our whistleblowers? And they're afraid that he's going to be assassinated. Who's doing the assassination, huh? I've got to take a break. 309-451-9299. I'll be back on the other side. 7 o'clock. Mark it in your calendars. I don't care. Or mark it in a reminder with a green crayon. You have got to tune in at 7:06 a.m. because guess who's joining me? David Shestokas. We're going to talk about the fake election that took place in 2022 around Amendment 1. Amendment 1 expands collective bargaining power, really just gives all of the power. We bent the knee to the government unions with this Amendment 1, but it turns out that the question they asked you on the ballot wasn't actually what they were putting in the Illinois Constitution and amending the Illinois Constitution with. So David Shestokas is going to be joining me here at 7 o'clock. All right, folks, be sure to text in and be a part of the show. I'm very excited to have David Shestokas on. We're going to talk all things Amendment 1 in the 7 o'clock hour. It's very important that you tune in because I want to know what you thought Amendment was. Amendment 1 was. I want to know if you feel duped after having our conversation with David Shestokas. Do want to address Jacqueline's comment here. It's ironic. This liberal girl is whining about liberal guys and not being, about liberal guys not being manly. In my observation, a liberal male falls into two categories. And masculinity, capability, manly qualities are never included in either one. I'm curious, your two categories, Jacqueline. I don't think you really laid those out. I'm curious what falls into one of two categories. And yeah, well, we shared that liberal TikToker. She went to TikTok, of course, to try to complain about stuff because she goes to the internet for all of her problems, which makes a whole lot of sense, right? But she says that she doesn't want to date liberal men anymore because they're not masculine, they don't pay for the bill, and things like that. Well, there's something I want to talk about when it comes to conservative men and conservative women. On the other side here, I'm going to be joining the radio here in just a second, but she thinks that conservative men are bad people. What? Because they vote for Donald Trump? Like, what about conservative men do you not like? Because the whole idea of conservatism is that you fall into two gender roles, and typically those gender roles are laid out for you in the Bible. So hold on one sec. Good morning. Hey, thanks so much for joining me. Impeach Joe Biden now, today. We need to impeach him today, folks. I'm going to get to it here a little bit later. We're going to get into this whole FBI probe and this FD 1023 form that shows that Joe Biden was quite possibly, I don't know, doing some bribery. $5 million, where he was getting paid for in exchange for favorable policy to foreign adversaries, right? That's a huge deal. We're talking about treason here, and that's definitely impeachable. Now, before I took the break, we were talking with Mike Coolidge. We were talking about this FBI now coming out and saying that they don't want to release the information because they're afraid that the informant will die, will be assassinated. And okay, all this aside, whether or not it's an excuse cooked up by Christopher Wray to not produce that information for James Comer, put all that aside. The bigger question is, what do you mean? Who's going to assassinate him? Are you guys checking into those threats? And you would think that the Department of Justice, the FBI, would be able to take care and to protect their witnesses and protect whistleblowers. Guess not. We'll be back here with David Shestokas. On the other side, he's a constitutional expert. So we'll be back. Good morning. Good morning. Thanks so much for joining me here on the Morning Buzz. We will be joined by David Shestokas in just a little while, and I'm so excited to talk about Amendment 1. Little background for you on what Amendment 1 is. Basically, it gives government unions all of the power in the world, and state legislators and Illinois legislators cannot go up against these government unions at all. So here's an example. We've got cops and they're in a union, okay? And it used to be where these cops, if they were a part of a public union, they couldn't go on strike. That was something that was not bargained for in their negotiations, because obviously you call the police and you want them to show up, right? So we could see situations where police, firefighters, people in public unions, they go on strike and they don't show up for when you need them because Amendment 1 affords them the ability to go on strike. So there's all kinds of different things with Amendment 1, not to mention it's going to raise your taxes and things like that, but we don't even really know what Amendment 1 is. And we're going to have David Shestokas joining me here in just a couple of minutes to talk about Amendment 1 and how the ballot question didn't actually reflect what they did. So I'm hoping he goes up and holds their feet to the fire. He's calling them out. I'm excited. He also has a book out there. It's called Constitutional Soundbites. You guys probably hear it on air. If you listen to Cities 92.9, we have the 1-minute clips where he goes through constitutional sound bites where there's different elements of the Constitution that he explains. And I think it's very important to read your Constitution. We're going to have him here joining us in just about 30 seconds. But then also, folks, we will be talking about HB 3751. And I'm going to try to lay this out for David while we're on air. What it does, it gives non-citizens here in the state of Illinois a gun and a badge. And I don't know if that's exactly U.S. Constitution. I don't know if that's against the Constitution. I'm pretty sure you have to be a United States citizen if you want to carry a gun legally. I don't know for sure. So we're going to talk with the Constitution expert.
Okay.
I'm proud of our national history. I'm proud we defeated the British. I'm proud of the Constitution. I'm proud of our Christian heritage. I'm proud that 600,000 Americans gave their lives to free the slaves. I'm proud we liberated Europe and the Pacific. I'm proud of the railroad, the plane, the computer, and the landing on the moon. I'm proud of Washington, Lincoln, Roosevelt, Coolidge, Eisenhower, JFK, Reagan, and of course, Donald Trump. I'm proud of our economic might, and I'm super proud of our unparalleled generosity and decency. And I am proud to be an American. One thing I am not proud of, Pride Month. And we are 6 days into it, folks, and I am sick and tired. Hey, this is the Morning Buzz. 7:06 a.m. I don't want to waste any time. Our Constitution expert, and he ran for Attorney General. I mean, he has I don't even know how to explain it, just a renowned attorney here in the state of Illinois. His name's David Shestokas, and he's joining me here because the election was fake, I guess. We're going to get to what that means because Amendment 1 really isn't what they said it was on the ballot. Walk us through this, David Shestokas, and walk us through why you know what you know, and two, what you're doing about it.
Good morning, Kat. It's great to be with you guys. It's been way too long, but of course, we have to have something of import to come on and utilize the airwaves of Cities 92.9. I know you have something important every day. I only have something important every once in a while. Um, but, uh, but at the moment,
No.
I heard you talking a little bit about Amendment 1, given the audience some background before I got on. And while that's kind of important, it's very important what Amendment 1 is theoretically supposed to do in terms of giving additional authority to unions within the state of Illinois. But frankly, while they called it the Workers' Rights Act, all it really had to do with was giving additional authority to public sector unions, turning them almost into a fourth branch of government. But actually, the pros and cons of Amendment 1 are not at issue at the moment. There's a lawsuit in Lake County, Illinois, instituted originally by five just citizens. Lead citizen, a fellow by the name of George Weckbacker, and George is just amazing guy, and we can talk a little bit about George, perhaps his background, but and four other members of the Illinois Freedom Alliance who are headquartered out in Rock Island, Annie Parchard, Arlene Rees, and what the essence of the suit is that, of course, the state of Illinois, the Illinois State Board of Elections, certified as an amendment to the United States Constitution this document, or excuse me, to the Illinois Constitution, this document called Amendment 1. The problem is that the text of Amendment 1 was not on the ballot any place in the state of Illinois. There was just an explanation. There's something called the Illinois Constitution Act, which defines how you go about in law presenting an amendment to the people of the state of Illinois. It builds off a provision in the Illinois Constitution that basically says an amendment to the Illinois Constitution can be proposed by 3/5 of both of the members of both houses of the Illinois General Assembly by resolution. And this is an important issue too, because the proposal, it does not follow the standard way a law gets enacted. A standard way a law gets enacted is passed by both houses of the General Assembly, and then it's signed by the governor or vetoed by the governor. And if signed by the governor, it becomes law. If vetoed by the governor and then the General Assembly overrides the governor's veto, then it becomes law. That's how something becomes law. A amendment proposal gets on the ballot by way of a resolution. There's no participation by the governor in the legal process of having the amendment proposed. And that becomes of some import going forward. But at any rate, the Illinois Constitution Act has a variety of provisions. It actually talks about what the label is on a ballot. It's supposed to say Constitution ballot. What in fact how it's supposed to appear to the voters, and that is it's supposed to be on its own sheet, standing alone, without any other issues on it. You can't have some elective offices and then down at the bottom or in the fine print, Constitution ballot. The government is required to provide explanations and the text of the ballot to all voters at least 30 days ahead of the election. There are a variety of things, but among the things that the Illinois Constitution, both the Illinois Constitution and the Illinois Constitution Act provide, is that you have to have the actual words of the actual amendment on the ballot.
I mean, what a concept.
Yeah.
I mean, what a concept. Yeah, if you're going to amend the Constitution, you should probably have what you're amending laid out before the voters. So, when you talk about the constitutional provisions, just want to clarify, that's laid out for us in the Illinois Constitution. I don't have mine on me right now, but I have a copy of the Illinois Constitution in studio somewhere here. And where would I find that in the Illinois Constitution?
I believe it's Article 14.
Okay.
of the Illinois Constitution. I haven't looked at that since we drafted the lawsuit, to tell you the truth.
Oh,
But
now we're getting into lawsuit territory. So
yeah,
this is the whole reason why David Shestokas is joining us, because he's the only guy really willing to defend the Constitution. And one thing, and I'm disappointed in, that he didn't get the Attorney General slot, right? Where I think he primaried Tom DeVore. Tom DeVore got the nomination for the Republican side of the ticket, and then Kwame Raoul took it away. I mean, just as Democrat elections go here in the state of Illinois. But one thing you want from your politicians, and especially from your attorney general, is somebody who's willing to defend and uphold the Constitution. And you're the expert in all of that. So you
okay.
are the only one going against this unconstitutional Amendment 1.
At the moment, well, again, I mentioned the 5 citizens. They actually, I worked with George and Annie and Arlene in constructing their petition, helped them through some procedural hurdles. While they were doing that, I was also involved in another case that's going on in Will County involving the clerk's office in Will County. And then finally, last week, we actually were in court I was in court actually on Wednesday on the Amendment 1 matter, and then in court on Thursday on the Will County algorithm election, let's call it, and defending election integrity at that moment. So those are 2 separate stories, however. Mm-hmm. And so they filed that, the citizens filed this originally pro se. The Illinois statute that for election contests on constitutional amendments provides that any 5 citizens of the state of Illinois who in fact voted in the election may file an election contest when it comes to constitutional amendments. And so these folks did. It's in Lake County. This is where George Weckbacker, the lead petitioner — these aren't plaintiffs, technically speaking, they're petitioners — lives. And while they didn't follow hardly anything in the Illinois Constitution Act involving the style of the ballot and the name at the top and on a separate page, and giving proper notice to the voters that this was coming up and being on the ballot, the essence, as I see it, is, of course, we didn't have the language. When there's a constitutional amendment, the Secretary of State prepares a pamphlet. Or in this case, actually, they put it on their website and sent out a URL to people. And of course, not everybody has the internet, or not everybody is well acquainted with how to take a string URL that's on a postcard and type it into their search engine and get there.
Right.
But to the best of my knowledge, they never showed a pamphlet, and the pamphlet is supposed to have the text of the amendment, arguments for it and arguments against it.
They mail those pamphlets out to the people on the voter roll, right?
They mailed out postcards.
Postcards, okay.
They mailed out postcards that actually said resident. U.S. Every residential, theoretically, every residential address. They weren't even addressed to actual voters. There's a myriad of ways in which they violated both the Illinois Constitution and the Illinois Constitution Act. And yet, of course, the Board of Elections says that we, the people — and of course, this is an act of the people of the state of Illinois. This is not an act of the General Assembly to amend the Constitution. It's an act of the people. Okay? And the Illinois State Board of Elections says that the people ratified Amendment 1. And so the problem, again, is there was an explanation, and the explanation had said some of the things that you were talking about before. It talked about the what additional authority unions would have in terms of that the right to work laws and prohibiting certain other kinds of activities, that are prohibiting the government from infringing upon the rights of unions is what it amounted to. And so the explanation that was on the ballot actually said, this amendment, this proposal will amend the Illinois Constitution, and it will do so and so, and it will do such and such. but the actual language that goes into detail that's, I don't know, probably about 150 or 200 words long, wasn't on the
The
ballot.
ballot. Yeah. I thought that was strange when I was sitting in the ballot box and I was like, wait a second. So why is this not laid out? Because anytime you have, added words to, or even like a tax referendum, right?
Right.
You're supposed to lay out what that tax is, the percentage, where it's going up for, or what it's going up from to. And that makes sense to have what is actually being put into and what it was before and what it's going to be after the amendment. Do want to shift gears and talk about the Will County case that you've got going on. So
Sure.
what's happening in Will County?
Well, in Will County, that's a kind of a different situation. Gretchen Fritz was the Republican candidate for Will County clerk. Gretchen is a good friend and also, like yourself, hosts a radio program on AM 560 Sunday nights on Target Radio. She's on there with Dave Lombardo, vice president of the Illinois State Rifle Association. Mm-hmm. So I've been on their show many, many times. So I'm friends with them. And they and a few days after the election in November 10th or 11th, Gretchen and a couple of her friends were going over the election results, and they noticed something that was just kind of odd. And that as they were going precinct by precinct, they were seeing that Lawrence Daly Ferry, the incumbent Will County clerk and Gretchen's opponent in the election, was getting more votes in each and every precinct than J.B. Pritzker. And that's not impossible, but it's strange because it's very typical that that of course the people at the top of the ballot, people come in, they vote on the elections that they're familiar with, that they know, and the further you get down the ballot, the less campaign money has been involved, the less campaigning has in fact been involved, and some voters just vote on say United States Senator, governor, the top of the ballot. And they don't vote as things go by. And so consequently, the lower you get on the ballot, the less likely it is that you're going to have as many or more votes than the people at the top of the ballot.
Right.
That's just understandable. But in this situation, consistently, the incumbent Will County clerk was getting more votes than J.B. Pritzker. Again, not impossible, but odd.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been involved in some election matters, as you know, for 7-8 years.
Fulton County, Georgia. Yep.
Yeah, I've been out in Fulton County, Georgia. I've been involved in the with the grand jury out there, and then I was, of course, with the president's team in Pennsylvania. I did things with Trump and Rubio in Florida, so I know a few folks involved in some election matters. And so I sent the Will County information out to Ed Solomon in New York. And I said, Ed, can you take a look at this for us? It looks odd. It's not impossible, but it looks odd. Ed's sort of, as I would describe, as a mathematical statistical savant. I mean, he can look at stuff and discern patterns that normal folks like yourself and me just can stare at and will never see.
Yeah.
And Ed called back in a couple of days and he said, Dave, this is kind of odd. If you know the early vote and the mail-in vote for Lawrence Daly Ferry, and you divide that by the election day vote of Gretchen Fritz in precinct 1, he says, then you can determine the rest. There's 6 variables for a 2-person election, right? There's election day, there's early voting, and then there's mail-in ballot. So there's 6 variables. But if you know 3 of the variables, in that particular precinct, it predicts what the rest of those 6 variables are going to be. And he said that was kind of curious that I found that pattern. He said, but then I took that pattern and I applied it to precinct 2, and it was the same. And then I did it to precinct 3, and it was the same, et cetera, down to all 310 precincts of the Will County clerk's race. Comport with this formulation, or the magic words these days that gets thrown around as algorithm. And Ed said, this is impossible. This cannot have happened. This is not something that was done by the voters. These vote totals, these vote returns do not express the will of the voters. It
Yeah, because
expresses
how strange would that be? The vote totals all fit the same algorithm.
right.
Yeah, that it just doesn't make sense. If the vote totals are all of the same algorithm, then it was designed.
Right, exactly. It was not determined by the voters, but the odds of that. So, and this is utterly impossible. And fortunately, I also have acquaintance from my other kind of work with a fellow by the name of Dr. Walter Doherty. Dr. Doherty is professor emeritus from Texas A&M University, former chairman of their statistics and computer science department. And also happens to be an expert testifying and working on the Kerry Lake matters in Arizona. Um, and so I called Dr. Doherty and I said, can you take a look at this for me, Doc? There's something kind of strange. I said, I've had an opinion that it's kind of strange, but certainly what I don't want is for you to affirm the other opinion. I said, can you do your own analysis and give me your thoughts? And Dr. Doherty called back in a few days. He said, Dave, this election was not decided by voters. This election was decided by this computer algorithm, if you will. And so we looked into this and determined that this was, as I think we've headlined this, another fake election. You know, the Amendment 1 was a fake election because the words weren't on the ballot.
Yeah.
The Will County Clerk's Office, in our opinion, is a fake election because it wasn't decided by the voters. And so now we've been in court on that since December 28th is when that got filed. It's gone back and forth. There's been some. They're fighting tooth and nail because they don't want Dr. Doherty or Ed Solomon testifying in a courtroom, and they've tried to impose on us. I just people have been watching election contests around. You see that everybody looks for ballots. They want to take a look at the ballots and see what the ballots said, or they want to look at the machines and ask for the USB stuff, ask for a lot of documentation. Our position is that we have irrefutable proof that this was not the will of the voters. And so we didn't ask for that. We didn't say, oh, let's look at the ballots, because actually I have no reason to believe that the ballots aren't going to report the numbers that we are working with, because those are the official numbers that are reported.
So they're trying to tie it up. They're trying to say that you want to look at the ballots and that's going to take time. They're trying to prolong this thing so that way you guys don't get in a courtroom.
That's exactly right, because once it gets in a courtroom, once Edward and Dr. Doherty testify, for somebody to say that this was the act of the free will of the voters, you have to have somebody come and dispute the math.
Isn't it wonderful how numbers don't lie? Numbers don't lie.
Yeah.
We have to take a break.
Okay.
And David Shestokas, tell us where we can find out more about you and about Constitutional Soundbites, where we can get a copy of your book. Because if you become an expert on the Constitution, folks, this stuff comes easy. The provisions that lay out, hey, this is how you have to amend the Illinois Constitution, you might actually learn something. One thing or two from Constitutional Soundbites. So, David Shestokas, how do we find out more?
Yeah, well, Constitutional Soundbites and Creating the Declaration of Independence, my book about the Declaration of Independence. And, of course, the Spanish version that's over my shoulder with George Washington there, Cápsulas Informativas Constitucionales, are all available on Amazon via and in hard copy and Kindle. But I would also encourage folks to Google Gretchen Fritz, Fritz, on Gretchen's campaign page. All up to now, the documents that have been involved in that election are posted on Gretchen's page. You can go through, you can find Edward Solomon's analysis. There's Exhibit B in the petition that describes what the math is, and as while it looks intimidating, Edward says it's only fifth grade arithmetic. And Exhibit B says what the process is. Exhibit C applies the Will County numbers to it. Exhibit D is Dr. Doherty's analysis, and Dr. Doherty's analysis is quite clear because, of course, he's 30 years as an educator, and so I would encourage you to take a look at Gretchen Fritz's campaign site.
And we'll be posting an article on cities929.com, folks. And David Shestokas, you have a great rest of your day. Thanks so much for joining me.
Thanks. Great to be with you, Kat.
Jill is a doctor, so I'm so glad that Joe Biden is in good hands, Scott Robbins.
Well,
Morning Buzz. So, at least he's in good hands as he starts to
deteriorate in front of our eyes. Is that what
Yes.
you're trying to say? Well, that ship sailed. I mean, I'm telling you, that ship sailed.
Scott, you crack me up. I'm telling you, I don't laugh as hard. Any other time of the day, it's Scott Robbins, Scott Stakes. It's funny.
Well, here's the thing. Here's the thing. So the Kansas City Chiefs were at the White House yesterday, right? Now the Chiefs were there because it's ceremonial that the NBA champions, Major League Baseball champions, the NFL champs, hockey champs, whatever, the Olympians that come to the White House. They have a little ceremonial thing in the Rose Garden, and the president speaks a few words. There's a photo op. He holds up a jersey and with his name on it, which of course is always something they do. And it's the end of the deal. That's it, and you move on. So Biden yesterday decides to spin some sort of bizarre yarn about how his wife is an Eagles fan. Now, again, the Chiefs are there. And you guys decide, we'll break it down when we hear but this is Joe Biden yesterday in the White House Rose Garden with the Chiefs. Here we go. I don't know. What?
What?
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, because maybe I was been in a coma. I slipped in a coma for a while. But was the Super Bowl played last weekend or yesterday? No, it wasn't. It was months ago. So why is I don't understand.
In February.
I know. I remember. Yes. It's just I have no idea. So I have no idea what he's talking about. I don't know what that means. I don't know what any of that means. So then they give him a jersey, right? With Biden on the back of it, which they always do. He goes down the line sort of the wrong way, stops, turns around, comes back, and then has the jersey down. They're like, no, you got to hold it up for the picture. I mean, this is the president of the United States that we're talking about here, right? And then he and Mahomes hold up the jersey it's the Chiefs jersey with Biden on the back. And then he shakes hands with somebody that's not there or attempts to. He does that thing where he sticks his hand out and then acts real surprised that no one's there.
Shakes his hand with the air, right?
Yeah, an air shake. Yeah, it's something very familiar. And was not part of our vernacular until Joe Biden became president. Now we know what an air shake is, right? Mm-hmm. So this is going on. It's just every single time we see this guy, it's something, right? And how they can run him again in 2024 is beyond me, but they're going to.
Hey, James Comey says that he's the only option, Scott Robbins. Okay, so
I heard that guy. Yeah, please.
James Comey says he's the only option. I don't know,
James
Scott,
Comey.
I'm thinking that he's going to be indicted or impeached by next week. That's
wouldn't that be something? I mean, of all the walls are closing in and Trump indictments and Trump in jail and all this stuff, if it ends up being Biden, wouldn't that be something? I mean, he get a short sentence because his lifespan isn't as long, but who knows what? We'll see. I did see that. Yeah, well, I mean, life imprisonment's like what, at the best 10 years. So
Scott,
from
you
right
just
now,
said it out loud. That's great.
Yeah, well, it's true. But anyway, Elon Musk is also in the news today. I don't know if you happen to see this or not, but Elon Musk. You know, the thing about Elon Musk is when I think I really, really like him, then he'll do something. I'll go, I don't know. But the thing I like about this guy is he just says it, right? He just says it. He's fearless. I suppose when you got $60 billion, you can be that way, right? But Elon Musk tweeted this out yesterday in talking about the mutilation of children that is currently going on in our country under the term gender-affirming care, which, of course, they've changed. More on that in a second. So Elon tweets out, gender-affirming care for minors is pure evil. Whoa, dude. Wow, really? Yeah, that's what he said.
And this is Elon Musk?
This is Elon Musk.
Wow.
Gender-affirming care for minors is pure evil. Now, he's been on this whole bandwagon for a while. And again, this is sort of I think this is the take of most rational people in our country. Mm-hmm. I think most rational people in our country could care less could care less what you do when you are an adult person. If you want to pretend to be whatever you want to pretend to be and you're not hurting anybody, no one cares. Right? But when you're a child, our job as a society is to protect those who cannot protect themselves. And that is children, that is the elderly, that is animals. Those are my top three things, right? That's our sacred duty right there. We have to protect those people. And in the eyes of the majority of the people, they don't understand why, because your 10-year-old says they want to be a girl and it's a boy, they should have this type of surgery done. So one of the tweets back to him was, gender mutilation didn't work well with focus groups, so they changed it to gender affirming. And really sad but true. Removing healthy body parts from kids can never be considered medical care. But that's the guys. That's where we're at right now.
It's mutilation.
That's exactly what it is.
Exactly
And and again, you could, and what you decide to do as a grown person or an adult in this country, again, if you're not harming anyone, and I don't have to pay for it, by all means.
And Scott, I want to ask you, because Elon put it out there, the What is a Woman? Have you watched that yet?
I haven't. I'm ashamed I haven't, but I just haven't. You've seen it, I'm guessing, right?
Like twice, 3 times.
Yeah. Well, it's blown up. It's absolutely blown up. It's like the #1 downloaded film now.
Well, you can watch it for free on Twitter. Elon just puts it out there.
Yeah, I'm going to have to do that. I got to make a point of doing that, actually.
It's so wild. The things that these people, apparently there was this one liberal in the clip, or in the film, and he talks about how the truth is bigoted. And he says, I don't like how you're saying that you want to get to the truth of what is a woman. Mm-hmm. And he goes, I think that that's kind of bigoted and comes from a place of not, it's somewhere not good, right? So the truth is seen as something bad to these people.
Right. Exactly. But that's how you distort and turn things. That's how it works. Did you ever see Tim Scott on the View yesterday, by the way?
I didn't, but I'm so sad that Joy Behar wasn't there.
I know. Me too. I
know.
Here, can I throw a different take at you that I heard about this? And again, I read about it last night. And it makes kind of sense to me. The quote was, "Why do these idiot Republicans keep going on the show?"
Yeah.
You got nothing to gain here.
Yep.
For the few people you may pick up that may look at you differently, I know why they do it in a sense. I think they say, well, because we're not like them. We're going to go into enemy territory and we're going to defend our positions, so we're going to do these things. But then the question was, if Sean Hannity asked any of the Democrats, besides Kennedy, Joe Biden, would Joe Biden ever agree to go on Sean Hannity's show on Fox? No, of course not.
No.
He's never going to. He'll never go on any show. That's probably a bad example. But, whoever the person is, if it's Hakeem Jeffries, do you think he's going to go on Hannity's show? He's not going to go on Hannity's show. No. And they're like, these guys don't play that game. They just don't do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I saw...
people even ask me, local Democrats that run here, and they're like, why don't you have the local Democrats on? And I'm like... Yeah, doors open, but they won't do it because they can't defend their positions.
Well, that's the thing. You have to be able to articulate and defend your position. If you can't do that, you're going to look like an idiot. Now, I thought Tim Scott held his own. I don't think it was any slam dunk because you're going to get shouted out and shouted over and laughed at, and the audience is going to boo and all this nonsense, right?
Yeah.
But that going in. I think I understand what he's trying to do, just create some sort of buzz, and again saying, hey, listen, I'm not afraid to defend my position with anybody. And there's something noble about that. But then I step back and I go, yeah, but why do that? Why would you give these people an audience? Because we know when Trump went to CNN, the net ratings went way up.
Yep.
And I'm assuming Trump did himself. He didn't do any harm doing that. But again, I don't know why you just don't shut these people out completely. That's just my suggestion, and again, take that for what it's worth. Oh, by the way, the mayor of New York, Eric Adams. Folks, this is probably the craziest story of the day.
Joy Behar probably would say that he is a legitimate black man, unlike
Well,
Tim
of course,
Scott.
Tim Scott's not. He's an illegitimate black guy. So is Clarence Thomas.
Yes.
Neither one of them have any idea what the black experience is like. Have no idea.
Legitimate black man, Eric
But
Adams.
Joy Behar does. Okay, yeah. An elderly white woman from New York knows what's going on. So yesterday, Eric Adams, the New York City mayor, they've got a problem there. They got a big problem there. They're a sanctuary city. all welcoming, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is very easy to do when you don't have to deal with the problem. Now, all of a sudden, migrants are flooding in, the illegals are flooding into New York City, and they don't know what to do with them. They're running out of resources, they're running out of places to go. All of this is happening in New York, and particularly New York City. So Eric Adams has decided the best plan. Remember, they're going to open the schools for a while, and then there was some pushback on that. They've done it anyway, but they still can't handle the influx. So Eric Adams' suggestion was, if you have a home and you got a spare bedroom in your house, hey, you got to help out. You got to help the cause here.
My God.
I know.
Does he want people to die?
How insane is that, right? And he said it with a straight face. We got the clip, right?
Yep.
Okay, here we go. Unbelievable. Okay.
Unbelievable.
So in other words, the government will pay you if you got a spare bedroom. They'll pay you to house a migrant. And I'm sure there'll be no abuse to take place in this one.
I can't decide what's worse. I mean, you've heard this, Scott. In the state of Illinois, we're going to start arming and giving police badges to non-citizens to arrest U.S. citizens. I'm pretty sure that's not constitutional, but I can't decide what's worse. A mayor coming out saying, hey, just bring on anybody into your home. Or, hey, let's give guns to people that aren't even legally here, and let's give them arresting power over you, the U.S. citizen.
I mean, it's complete insanity. It doesn't make any sense at all. I mean, this is crazy. This is communism at a level that I've never seen before, being discussed openly, forcing you to take in people into your house. Unreal. Oh, we'll pay you. We'll give you a little stipend here and there. No problem.
Also, what's faith-based locales? Is that
I think
they've
run out of churches to stack them. They think that, well, this has been good, but hey, we're going to run out and we need more room. And anyway, and hey, you know what the problem, and really the problem is simple. He's solved by just closing the freaking border. But nobody suggests that. Yeah. All right. Hey, Kat, have a good day.
See you later,
we will
Scott
talk
Robbins.
to you later.
I'll talk to you later.
Yep.
Scott Robbins is on Markley, Van Camp, and Robbins tonight at 8 o'clock. You guys won't want to miss it. I'll be back here on the other side. I got a couple of things I want to run through. Specifically, I want to run through the FDA pulling the emergency authorization of the J&J COVID-19 jab after the final batch expired last month. So now that they're expired, they're pulling the emergency authorization. I'll be back. This is The Morning Buzz. folks. Hey, this is the Morning Buzz. The FDA, they have determined that it's inappropriate or it's appropriate to protect. So now they're saying, no, we're not going to do the emergency authorization of the J&J COVID jabs. Now, this comes after the final batch expired last month. So they're pulling the emergency authorization only after the final batch expired on May 7th. Okay. And where was all of this before? Back in April 2021, when we found out that the Johnson & Johnson jab had to be halted because people were observing numerous instances where there were, quote, rare and severe type of blood clotting happening in individuals after receiving the J&J jabs. You think that maybe April 2021 would have been an appropriate time to pull that emergency authorization use? No, they paused it and they were like, yeah, there's some people getting blood clots, but don't worry. We've got all of this stockpile of J&J vaccines and we're just going to give it to people anyway. So Bloomberg is out there with the report. There's this Janssen Pharmaceuticals. It's a company owned by Johnson & Johnson, and they told the FDA that previously acquired jabs have reached their expiration date and that the U.S. demand for the product is no more, so they aren't recommending that the FDA have emergency authorization for these jabs anymore. Did you know there was a condition, it's called the Guillain-Barré syndrome, and this is where you lose controls of your bowel, bladder, you have problems moving your mouth, you can't open your eyes or move your eyes, you experience paralysis and sometimes even death. This is all according to Yale Medicine, and this is when you take the J&J vaccine, and that's what was going on with people. And you know what the J&J, what they did? They slapped a warning label on the jabs, letting you know that you have higher chances of, dying when you take this. You think that would have been a time to remove the emergency authorization from the FDA? You think that would have been a time? Nope. Now that the jab is expired, it expired on May 7th, according to the CDC. Now that it's expired, they've suggested only now, June 6, 2023, almost a month after the batch had gone bad, after the batch has gone bad, May 7th, now they're suggesting that you remove the emergency authorization. The CDC confirmed the authorization removal on its website and recommends adults who have received the now discontinued jab. You can't get J&J anymore. You do some sort of blend, a cocktail, a concoction of Moderna and Pfizer. You are a lab rat. Okay, that's what they think of you. You're a lab rat. So Janssen, this big pharma company that's a part of J&J, they reportedly did not ask for a withdrawal until May 22nd, a withdrawal from that emergency authorization to stop giving it to people 2 weeks after the claimed expiration date, May 7th. So did people get an expired vaccine? Did they get an expired jab jabbed into their arm? Who knows? All right, I'm going to be back here on the other side. I have a very special guest. Plus, Nikki Haley. She finally, I got to give credit to her. I'm not a Nikki Haley fan. She threw Trump under the bus after January 6th, and then she tried to flip and say that she didn't try to do that, or that she didn't throw him under the bus, but she did. Anyway, she did get a question on abortion, and she answered it like we have been dying. Conservatives have been dying, waiting for someone to answer the abortion question like this, and she does it for the first time in a very public way. I'll be back with that. I am proud to be an American. I really am. I'm proud of this nation. I'm proud of the 600,000 Americans who laid down their life to free the slaves. I'm proud of a lot of things that we have done here in America. I'm not proud of Pride Month. Hey, good morning. This is the Morning Buzz. I've got so much to get to today. I'm very excited. Joining me in studio, Vadim Kulinchenko and Tom, Tom, Tom. I didn't even get your last name. Tom is joining me. We're all in studio here, and I'm so excited to introduce Vadim, who is actually got an event going on here at Common Grounds tonight at 7 o'clock, right?
Well, actually, the event is at Community Bible Fellowship, a church in El Paso.
Okay.
But Common Grounds will come into our conversation in a few minutes. So that's glad you mentioned it. But if you go to Common Grounds, you'll find it's probably closed at 7 p.m. But if you come to Community Bible Fellowship, and actually, Kat, if you go to Can Do Kids International /Ukraine event, you'll get all the details. CanDoKidsInternational.org /Ukraine event. That'll give you times, everything you could want to know about the event with Vadim tonight.
Tom Roth joining me in studio with Vadim Kulinchenko, who is a firsthand update on war relief efforts inside of Ukraine. So I'm just going to read a little bit from that site, Can Do Kids International. This is incredible, and this is the number that stuck out to me. 410,000 people. You've evacuated them from combat zones, and you're a pastor, Vadim. So tell me a little bit about you, how you, got to the United States, where your hometown is in Ukraine, and why you started this effort to try to evacuate people from within that war zone. I think yesterday there was a counteroffensive in Bakhmut, and I was just I shocked by things that are happening in Ukraine. And I saw the video footage, and there's all kinds of questions of whether or not Russia or Ukraine did the attack. So, Vadim, tell me a little bit about you.
Yeah, good morning. Thank you for having me. I am Ukrainian. I grew up in Central Asia, though. But my parents moved to Ukraine in 1995, and I've been living in the country since then. And when the war started, in basically 468 days, back on February 24th, it was a shock for everybody, And the second day of that, just to give you a little bit of a idea what was happening, at 11 p.m. we received a phone call from a group of about 35 people who needed a place to stay for a day as they were fleeing the eastern side of Ukraine, Kharkiv in particular, and they needed to go to the west. And I happened to live in the very center of the country, and so at 11 p.m. we had to figure out a place to stay for about 35 people driving their vehicles, escaping the war. And and that's basically was the start of all our humanitarian efforts. First it was evacuation, and of course, humanitarian aid and anything that people need, because a lot of them just left without anything. They just had a little, bag on them, and that was it. So we've been working on a humanitarian front since then, basically. But I often come to U.S. I actually have been coming to U.S. since 2007, at least once a year. And we started a ministry out of Minnesota back in 2011 with the idea to help Ukrainian churches and Ukrainian ministries over there. So that's, one of those reasons why I am in U.S.
Mm. And tell me a little bit about the aid. So you are Can Do Kids International. People are donating. Is this all like faith-based donations, or Do you work with government at all to provide aid to Ukraine?
Most of it is faith-based donations. Our government does its own part in providing humanitarian aid to Ukrainians, but most of our work is connected to different relief organizations and ministries, Christian ministries, churches that support, and that aid goes from just funds being sent to help out to containers with humanitarian aid, which is still very needed. The word about Ukraine is getting lower and lower in the sense that people have other things here and in the world, but it's been for or almost soon is going to be a couple of years, but the need in Ukraine is still big and all that, and so my kind of part of my role is to basically keep Ukraine up front, I guess, and just kind of continue to share and continue to invite those who want to be a part of relief efforts to help out.
And we're talking with Vadim Kulinchenko, and he is a Ukrainian pastor. And look it up, folks. It's Can Do Kids International. And Tom Roth is also joining me in studio. So I also wanted to ask you just overall your thoughts on the war. Should we be in it? I don't know if that's I know you go. Your thoughts on it? What's going on? Or I know that in a nutshell, Russia, there's this piece of Ukraine that they want, right? And they're
Well, it's even a little bit more than that. So technically speaking, the war started 9 years ago. So 2014 was the occupation of the eastern part of Ukraine, two regions and two capitals of those regions that bordered with Russia in the east, and then annexation of Crimea, our peninsula. And so that's where it all started. And it started because Ukrainian people wanted to go toward Europe and to be part of European community and didn't really want to go toward Soviet times. And that's where it started, and then that was a kind of a frozen conflict in the sense that front line wasn't moving, and it was just a little, strip over there that was occupied, all that. And then, 468 days ago, Russia decided to invade us on a full scale. And, I guess in a nutshell, Russia, I think, is the one of those few countries, maybe even the only country in the world that has its origin not in Russia. It's actually Kiev, Rus, back in the day that eventually established Russia, and we've been having issues with military issues and other issues with Russia for the last 400 years. And the biggest one was occupation during the Soviet times. So all these Soviet republics, technically speaking, were occupied by Russia and created this big country, that they would show off to the world that we were the best and all those things. I was growing up. I mean, I was born in 1979, so I kind of remember the Soviet collapse in 1991. So I do remember a little bit of that, but we had a song in the Soviet times where it said, I don't know any other country where you can breathe so freely. And that was the idea that we were
in Soviet Russia.
Yeah, so we were
Well, that's
we were told that we were the best, and Americans were aggressors and all those things. And but in a nutshell, Russia. Well, shouldn't say all Russia. I would say Putin regime. That would be more accurate to say. He doesn't want independent Ukraine to exist.
Now, this is going to be another heavy question for you. You ready, Vadim? Vadim
Yes.
is joining me. He's going to be out, and I have it pulled up here on our Facebook Live, folks. We're on YouTube Live. You can see him in studio. Um, now, Vadim, do you think that the United States should be involved? Should we be sending military aid to Ukraine? Like we have been. There's been packages. Joe Biden has been sending Ukraine aid to.
Um, I would say yes, and the reason for that is because it's not just local conflict over there. It's more of a fighting for freedom for the whole Europe.
Mhm.
It just happened to be in Ukraine.
Mhm.
So, in that sense, we are basically in the middle between dictatorship and the free world in our part of the world. And it's not about Ukraine winning the war and all that, but it's about the security in the whole region
Mhm.
and peace in the whole region
Do
and
you
all those. And so I think yes, and we are really grateful for all the help that has been provided to our country. And
Mhm. Well, I'll tell you where I stand on it, right? I would say no, but here's where I'm coming from.
okay.
The all of this aid is going over to Ukraine, and I feel as if we are fueling the war, and that this could be done via negotiations, peace deals. Do you think that you're beyond that in Ukraine, having some sort of negotiations where, hey, our president uh, intervenes and works out those negotiations? There was no war during President Donald Trump's time, right, where there was peace. Uh,
Well, it was war. It was
war.
just kind of in the east, and it was wasn't moving, and it wasn't whole country.
Hmm.
So
But
we
there
we,
was
we,
this
we
rift.
did. Oh yeah, we did have the war.
Hmm.
Um, I think in Ukraine, nobody believes in peace. One historically, if taking 400 years of history. Another thing, you um, we've tried, and we've tried a lot, and for the last 8 years, there has been, or there were, well, actually, there has been negotiations going in Minsk, if uh, remember those, and they always failed because it wasn't about actually getting somewhere for
Hmm.
Russia. It was about creating frozen conflicts. Now, if you look at the region, you have Transnistria, unrecognized territory between Ukraine and Moldova that was occupied by Russian military over there, and then the occupation of Georgia, 20% of Georgian Republic of Georgia. Territories are occupied by Russia, and so they've been creating these, frozen conflicts basically over there to be able to control and rule over the region. So on the Ukrainian official, side of things, they made a decision that there's going to be no negotiation with Putin because it's going to fail. He doesn't want to talk, and there's, as they say, there's nobody to talk with at the moment over there.
Hmm.
And so we hope for not so much of a negotiation. We hope for a victory because that's the only thing that will stop Russian aggression that has been around for many years.
All right. Well, we have to take a quick break, but we're going to be back on the other side. We're talking with
Absolutely.
Vadim. He is a Ukrainian leader in the international discipline making movement. So, Ukraine has been in the Ukraine. This directly involves more than 500 churches, 24 denominations, plus 57 organizations, and a network of more than 5,000 ministry leaders. So, you're heading the charge on this network. And like I said, 410,000 people they have been able to evacuate from these combat zones. And
Over 200,000 people received help through our partnership. It's not just only us. It's a partnership.
Sure.
It's a movement of different organizations, and we believe in partnerships, and we believe that together we can do way more than any particular denomination or particular organization. And so we truly work together, trying to, and the unity that we are seeing in Ukraine right now is just incredible. We really glad that people got together for the same cause.
One thing I do want to ask you about, we're taking a break, but one thing I want to ask Vadim about is the death toll. So I don't know if there's been conflicting reporting out there about the death toll, if it's more than what people are saying, or what's going on there. So we're going to come back. Vadim is joining me here on the Morning Buzz. We'll be back. Where is he gonna be? Well, you guys can find out at candokidsinternational.org/Ukraine event. And I've got it here on my YouTube Live and Facebook Live. We are live in studio if you want to see Vadim and Tom Roth, Vadim Kulinchenko. Kulinchenko. I'm so bad. I'm so bad at pronunciations, guys. But if you guys want to see where he's going to be, I've got the web address up here, and he is going to be in El Paso. Tell me what you plan on doing here at the Community Bible Fellowship tonight at 6:30 is when it starts.
Yeah, is it 6?
Yeah, well, there'll be free food at 6:30. If you like tacos, come and join us at 6:30. No charge, and then Vadim will speak at 7.
Vadim will.
Yeah, I will bring update on the situation on the humanitarian front and how things have been and all that, and also we'll be sharing some opportunities that would be working toward restoration of the local community. I guess that's the one of those things that we're working toward. We want to show that there's hope. We want to show that there is. It's not the end. The war will be over, and we truly, Ukrainians believe that we will win this war. And then after that, there's going to be a lot of restorations to do, psychologically, emotionally, physically, all those things. So I'm going to be talking on several projects that we're working on locally, both locally and on a country level.
Mm-hmm. I did want to, we were talking through the break about the death toll. So this is a big thing here in the United States that we talk about a lot is the death toll. And if it's being reported honestly, there was a young guy who I guess was on a Discord server leaking things from our United States military that contained information about the death toll comparative to Russian deaths, deaths of Russian soldiers and Ukraine soldiers. And the difference there was insane. So when you say, I forget the exact numbers, but they were telling us something different, that Ukraine was actually, gaining ground and that they were actually taking out way more Russian soldiers than what was leaked in these documents. Your thoughts on that? You say that you believe Ukraine is going to win this war. And I've always said, and I feel bad because I'm just like, here I am getting a firsthand perspective. Vadim comes from Ukraine. He's been in this. He's saved people. 410,000 people have been evacuated. You've provided 200,000 people with humanitarian aid. You're working with a network of ministries, churches, Can Do Kids International here locally with Tom Roth. So you are in this. Well, how can you say that and then also look at the death toll here? Obviously, not as many Russian soldiers dying in comparison to Ukraine soldiers, according to those leaked documents.
Well, yeah, those. I'm familiar with those documents. And,
yeah, he was like 21-year-old kid on Discord.
Yeah, and I wouldn't say that we could, believe those because, well, to take Bakhmut for example, the one of the hottest zones right now in Ukraine. Russian forces were trying to conquer that city for over 9 months. They lost over 70,000 people over there. Now Ukrainian forces are pushing them back at the moment, and they're moving. They say that we may, get it freed within coming couple of weeks.
Bakhmut.
Yeah. So, according to our official source, and again, just to make a comment on this, we actually don't know exactly because a lot of the territories are still under occupation, and how many
when they're
people,
under occupation, you can't even go in and get the dead.
Right.
Oh.
So basically, according to our official sources from the military administration, it's 2,1100. So it's 211,000 soldiers Russia lost. from the beginning of the full scale war. This is more people they had in the beginning of the invasion. Right now, they have another 300,000 in our territory, and they lost, over 3,800 tanks. And we've got the stats going. They lost 18 ships. They lost 313 planes and 299 helicopters. So they basically, Putin destroyed his army.
Yeah.
And that army was the actual professional army. They lost most of the professionals at the moment, and so that's the civilian. No, that's the military losses on the Russian side. Ukrainian side, they don't tell us how many, and but the ratio they say 1 to 7. So 1 Ukrainian soldier to 7 Russian soldiers is what we're losing at the moment. But again, those are just hopefully when the war is over, we will know the numbers and all that. But as far as civilian casualties, I would estimate over 30,000 within this year and a half. But it can be more. City of Mariupol was the deadliest and the worst, I guess, among those that had a lot of people died over there. And then eastern Ukraine is almost, between the old front line and where the fighting is going right now, it's just gone. I mean, it's completely destroyed.
And when you say these numbers, it makes sense because I've always said this on air, and correct me when I'm wrong. What I've said is that this is a hot proxy war between America and Russia at this point because we're funding the war essentially as America, and we're sending over tanks. And I always say this: war is a racket, and here's what I mean. Say we're sending over tanks, okay? And their tanks are from this big military complex, say Raytheon or something like that weaponry, and we buy from Raytheon. What has been put out there is that these Raytheon companies, this military complex, if we purchase their weaponry, then in exchange they make large donations to the politicians who decide to sign off on these aid packages, to sign off on the weapons we're sending over there. And it's just this vicious cycle of keep buying weaponry and things like that. So what do you say to that? War's a racket, and that we're just fueling this circular, hey, we're going to buy from you, you're going to donate to us, we're going to buy from you, we're going to donate to us. But it makes sense because if we're buying all of those tanks, I mean, essentially you wouldn't think, right, on its surface that Ukraine would be able to defeat Russia. I mean, it just, given the regime status of Putin. Putin is evil, right? People will say I'm a Putin apologist. It's not true. Putin is evil. The regime is terrible. But you wouldn't think that Ukraine, much smaller country, new country. I think it was, I don't know when Ukraine was officially, but 2014, right? When that all happened with that small sliver. It's a fairly newer country. You wouldn't think on its surface that it would be able to do it. Now, America defeating Russia, that sounds more likely. But your thoughts about this proxy war with Russia, is it just this Cold War between, I mean, sometimes I feel like the Lindsey Grahams here, Republicans, Democrats who want this war are living out this fantasy of the Cold War, and they keep wanting to fight Russia.
Kat, can I just make a couple
Mm-hmm.
comments? You've got to remember, we've got an ocean between us and Russia. And it's not just us and Russia. My daughter, as I told you during the break, was in Ukraine working for Can Do Kids when the war started, and she and her husband got out and are now refugees in Germany. So we have more contacts with Western Europe, and Western Europe has Russia for a neighbor. They have a lot more at stake and a lot more to lose than we do. I mean, And so they're right there with us. And of course, we're the biggest, richest country, so we are doing the most. But there's people that know the history of that part of the world, know what their plans are, and they want to be safe. They want peace, and they want peace through strength. And so it's not just us. It's not a Russia-U.S. fight, even though it's simple. That would be simple to understand. It's much more complicated, and there's people that are at risk themselves, and that's why they want to keep Russia in Russia.
Yeah, thank you for that question. It's
Mhm.
and I think you would agree that every war has been a political game,
Yeah.
and it's all about influence. It's all about power. It's all about ruling over a region and influencing and controlling and all those things. So every war starts because people want to be over particular territories, particular resources, particular to protect their lifestyle, all those things. So that's kind of why all these things are happening. To be honest with you, and I don't know if it's very well known, but when the war started, neither United States nor the Western world, EU, to be specific, neither of them believed that we would stand. They literally gave us 3 days, maybe a week,
Hmm.
and they believed we would fail. One of the examples that we're hearing now. Well, Zelensky was offered to escape the country in the very beginning, and he refused to do it. And then also we had our foreign affairs minister in one of the European countries, and they had a gathering there or of some sort, and they literally were saying goodbye to him. It was good to work with you, and they believed that Ukraine would fail, and we would become just we'll cease to exist as an independent state. And so that's why in the beginning, the help was, for the first couple of weeks, we didn't receive anything from anybody. And but then Ukrainians started pushing back, and Ukrainian forces, starting with what they had at the moment, they starting to fight, and they actually stopped. They slowed down the invasion and started to gain grounds and started to actually cause problems to. And then when that had started to happen, then the Western world started to think, oh, we were wrong. And it is very difficult probably to admit when you're wrong, but and then slowly, and again, the help has been coming in, and a lot of it, but still not enough, and then very not fast enough.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, for us, because every day we have people dying.
Yes.
With all that, and so it would seem that Russia, what they did is just historically, they convinced the Western world that they were the second army in the world.
Yeah.
But it appears not,
Mhm.
and Ukrainians basically proved them wrong. And so I would say that we
Hold your own, but the United States
yeah.
does help.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It would take. I mean, without the help, we probably wouldn't stand long term,
Mhm.
because they do have more weapons. They do have more people. Our Ukrainian army right now, well, everybody who carries a weapon in Ukraine from the government, we have about 1 million people right now. Our professional army was at the beginning of the war about 250,000.
Mhm.
We kind of learned our lesson after 2014 and started rebuilding.
Mhm.
And the irony in the situation is, unfortunately, those missiles that they're shooting at us right now, we gave those missiles to them. because when we gave up our nuclear weapons, I think it was 1994 or something. There were three countries that promised us protection. There was Russia, there was United Kingdom, and there was United States.
Mm.
And we didn't get that, and I guess from that point of view,
So there was a promise made
Yeah.
to help you guys in
Yeah.
'94. See, this is something completely new to me because
Yeah.
everybody always says that we shouldn't be helping Ukraine because they're not a part of NATO, and that's a big fight for Zelensky. He tries to get us to be a part of NATO, or tries to get you guys to be a part of NATO. The Ukraine.
and if we were in NATO,
Mhm.
this war would never happen.
Yeah.
And the reason we're not in NATO is because the Western world was too afraid of Russia.
Yes.
And that's kind of the situation, and that's where the their specialists, I guess, got it wrong. Because it was a lot of it was propaganda. Because one of the things that we joking about this, but we praise Russian corruption
Mm.
because of that corruption. They were saying that they were developing their military, they were building, all that weaponry, but in
It's all
reality,
propaganda.
it's all propaganda. To give you just a couple of examples, so there's one Russian commander that was given an order to, get into the storage facility and start up, tanks that were in storage. And then when he got there, he realized that only one of 10 tanks actually functional. There were tanks that had no engine in them. So it was all stolen, basically, and the guy killed himself because he knew that it would be his fault eventually and all that kind of stuff. We have a few footage. The Ukrainian soldiers got caught with some Russian soldiers, and they were going through their stuff, and they had this little brick, which is supposed to be a piece of plaster to make bombs, but when they opened it, it was just a wooden brick.
Mm-hmm.
So things like that. So we, in that regard, we really, praise Russian corruption because they destroyed their own army themselves, and that's why It's not that they're like weak.
Yeah.
There's a lot of them, and they're strong and all that, but not as strong as they draw a picture.
Let's draw the picture. Yeah, so we have to take another quick break, but we're going to be back, folks, on the other side. This is The Morning Buzz. I'm Cat Petersen. Right over there talking with me, Vadim Kulenchenko. He is a Ukrainian leader and a pastor. He's going to be in El Paso today speaking, and then there's going to be a taco dinner. I've also got Tom Roth from Can Do Kids International. I will be right back, folks. This is The Morning Buzz. Hey, good morning, folks. This is the Morning Buzz, and I don't want to waste any time because this is probably the most explosive interview I've ever had on the Morning Buzz. Vadim Kulinchenko, he's a Ukrainian leader, and then Can Do Kids International, Tom Roth. So tell me a little bit about uh, Vadim, your travels. You live in Ukraine right now.
Yes, I
So
live in Ukraine, and I basically most of the time I stayed in the country. It became very difficult to travel. Um, just to I live in the central part of the country, literally geographical center. For me, just to get to a plane to fly somewhere and then come back home from the plane takes 4 days right now. Ukraine closed their borders, and men are not allowed outside the country because of the draft and all that. And so we have to have a special permission from the government through humanitarian channels to be able to leave. And it's only uh, 30 days at a time maximum. So like this trip, I have to be in US for more than a month. And so I have to go back to Ukraine for a couple of days, cross the border into the country, and then go back again because I can't stay outside the country for more than 30 days. So it became really a time-consuming and expensive to leave the country to go on a trip.
right. And you're coming back and forth and you're working with Tom Roth. And give me an idea of what Can Do Kids International is doing with Vadim and his network of ministry.
Sure. Well, the mission of Can Do Kids International is to help kids experience God's love. And it looks different in different countries. What we do in Africa certainly looks different in Ukraine. And what we do in Ukraine after February 24th looks way different than what we did before. Before, we were helping kids learn the Bible, helping kids in bad situations. We worked a lot with camp ministries, with getting ministries sustainable over there. They do things so well in terms of leadership, in terms of networking. Then it changed on a dime when the war started. It was getting people out of the hot zones, taking care of people. I mean, we talked about it during the break, Cat. In his small town of 10,000 plus people, almost overnight they got 5,000 refugees or displaced persons. That would be equivalent to a place the size of Bloomington Normal getting 61,000 new mouths to feed by this time next week. And that's a lot of work, and it takes money, and it takes coordination, and it takes effort. So our efforts have switched basically to humanitarian, and we also work with the camps. A lot of these kids are really damaged by their experiences with war. I mean, Vadim, last time you were here, you told me some kids can identify the type of Russian missile just by the sound because they have that much experience with it. And these are little kids. They've done nothing. So we've got camp experiences for them. When we can finally get back into Ukraine as Americans, we want to take maybe psychologists, doctors, people that can counseling that can really help these damaged people get back on their feet, as well as fixing their infrastructure and just getting life back. This is really the cost of this war. You talked about money and tanks. It's in people. We were really fortunate. As I told you, my daughter is now a refugee in Germany with her husband. They escaped from Ukraine when the war started, and through them we were able to connect our network in Ukraine with a German church, and it is just so cool to see people working together across international lines, and so a lot of good is happening. But when this war is over, there's going to be a lot of work to do to rebuild, to heal, to help, and we're going to continue to be right there.
Which brings me to this, Vadim. I want to ask it, end in sight. Is there an end in sight at this point, or do you think that there's an end coming soon?
Ukrainian army is getting ready for counteroffense, and we hope and believe that this counteroffense will actually at least get Russian forces outside our country. It doesn't mean that the war will be over, and I doubt it's going to be over by the end of this year. I mean, but miracles happen. And we've seen all kinds of miracles happening because from the military perspective, having 200,000 people invading a country of 40 million with 250,000 military it's a not very smart military move. I don't know what they're thinking. Maybe they were thinking that we are, weak and all that. But you don't do that. It's just so in that only it was a miracle in itself that they actually started it, because it made no sense with that many, personnel, that many forces to invade this big of a country. And so, but yeah, we believe and hope and pray that this war, the Russian army will be out of our country, at least our territories, by the end of this year. But again, nobody knows. It's just a personal, hope. But yeah, just adding to what Tom said, our kids have seen and experienced things that should not have.
Well, that's going to do it for our time here, folks. But we're going to continue our show here on the live stream after we get off the air. These guys got to get going because they're going over to Peoria. It is. But real quick, folks, don't forget, it's tonight at Community
Bible Fellowship. Go to the link. You'll find all the information you need.
Yep, it's CanDoKidsInternational.org/Ukraine event. All smashed together, all one word. You guys have a great rest of your day. Thanks, Vadim. And thank you, Tom, for coming in studio. Bye-bye. Love you.